Hello YouTubers! I will be going through this week's games, review last week's tips and leaderboard of our footy tip comp, and also go through my Brownlow Votes for season 2025. My leaderboard after round 3 for the Brownlow Votes are: in top spot with 6 votes, I've got Zed Merritt, Essendon. 4 players tied in second spot on 5 votes are J Dawson, Adelaide, and Anderson, Gold Coast Suns, T Liberatore, Western Bulldogs, and J McRae, St Kilda Saints. These are my leaderboard for the 2025 Brownlow Votes after round 3. My tips for AFL round 3 were: I got the power incorrect against the Bombers. Couldn't believe it. The power looked good at the start, and then Essendon, what a finish in the last quarter. Outscored Port like 5-1 in the last quarter. I got the Doggies against Carlton. Yes. No good. I got Melbourne wrong against the Suns. Woohoo! Saints and the Lions and the Hawks and the Crows plus Freo all 1 for me. I got 6 out of 8 correct. Let's see the leaderboard for the Talking Everything AFL tips. Okay, let's look at the table. In equal top spot are Patrick L32 and Potter 1, both on 20 tips. In third spot, Red Dead Redemption and I Am Hags, both on 18 votes. Then me and Haddons in 5th spot respectively are on 17. Followed by in 7th spot respectively, we have Neddy Shin and Joyce 79, both on 13 votes. Now, I'll give you my tips for round 4 AFL games. Come on, let's go. Before we continue, I would like to ask for a very small favour. If you enjoy this AFL content, please take a sec to subscribe to the channel and like the video. That would be awesome. Okay, let's return back to the show. The first game of the week is between Collingwood and Carlton. The players injured for Carlton are Carroll, Duffy, Dern, Fantasia, Hollands, Monaghan, O'Farrell, McKee, Pignell, Jagger Smith, Williams and McKay. For the Magpies, they will be missing Harrison, Johnson, McRae, Markov, McInnes and Mitchell. The players in the mix for the Magpies are Allen, Frampton and Johnson. The players in the mix for the Blues are Carroll and White. Where the game will be won at, it is the midfield, and especially looking at Collingwood. In ruck, you have Darcy Cameron against the Conning. Both ruckmans are pretty good with hit-outs, but the Conning provides more clearances in terms of getting, and also getting possessions around the ground. Say I just give the chocolate suit to Conning over Cameron. Then in midfield, you got Cripps against Sarah. Sarah's a good two-way runner. Cripps, just a consistent player. So it's even between those two players. Then you got the gun, Nick Dacos against George Hewitt. Hewitt's a good human out of the ball, but Dacos, elite, foot skills, decision making. I give the chocolates to Dacos over George Hewitt. In centre, we got Cripps against Josh Dacos. Josh Dacos, good premiership player, but Cripps, 2-time Brownlow medalist, gun player, good inside, hard mid. Give the chocolates to Cripps over Jay Dacos. Then on the wings, you got Lipinski against Cottrell. It's pretty even between those two players. Say it's even. Then on the other wing, you got experience side bottom against Akers. Akers, good runner. Side bottom still contributes pretty well to Collingwood. Good decision maker. I give the chocolates to side bottom. And just look at the ruck midfield setup. I love Collingwood's setup of their ruck and mid. It's got elite players, and that's excluding other players that can rotate in the midfield like Penelope, De Goey. Therefore, I'm going to tip Collingwood to beat Carlton. The next game is between Geelong and the Melbourne Demons. Geelong lost to the Brisbane Lions away, and Melbourne got smashed by Gold Coast Suns by 58 points at home at the MCG. The players injured for the Cats are Hughes, Braun, Burke, Conway, Edwards, Guthrie, Hoppen, Arwitich, Kozatsky, Motofai, and Moya. The players injured for the Demons are Sully, Hall, Jefferson, Kentley, Lever, McAdam, McWay, Melsham, Moitz, Wakefield, Fultrup, Windsor, and Lindsay to a knee injury. The players in the mix for the Cats is Tom Stewart, For the D's, their players in the mix are Posy Pickett, back from suspension, Jefferson, Spargo, Roy Woden, and Turner. Where the game will be won at, it's look at Melbourne's defence. They've got the tall defence of McDonald and May playing on Neil and Cameron. Then you got Petty against Myers. That's a mismatch. Small against tall, especially at GMHBA or Geelong's home, where it's a small ground and you need the extra crummer. Then double defence, you got Salem against Henry. Henry is a hybrid medium forward that can mark the ball. And then you got like Sparrow against Smith and Bowie against Stengel. Just looking at the Demons' defence is too tall, and Geelong's small forwards are going to have so many opportunities to crumb the ball when it hits the ground at the small ground, and they'll kick a lot of goals. And just looking at this, where the Demons have lost their first 3 games, including the last 2 games of back-to-back 50-point plus flogging, and Geelong lost their last 2 games, a close one to St Kilda and to the Lions by 12 points last week. I expect Geelong to beat Melbourne Demons at home in GMHBA Stadium. The next game is between Gold Coast Suns and Adelaide Crows. Oops, I did a mistake. It should have been Geelong over Melbourne, so I'll change my votes to Geelong instead of Melbourne, where I tip Geelong to beat Melbourne. Returning back to the Crows and Gold Coast Suns game. Last week, the Gold Coast Suns had a magnificent win where they smashed the Demons by 50 odd points at the MCG, and the Crows had a solid 20 odd point win against the Kangaroos at Adelaide Oval. Last week, both teams remained undefeated, with Gold Coast Suns 2-0 and the Crows 3-0. It will be one of these two sides' first loss of season 2025 when they meet this Saturday. The players injured for the Suns are Ballard, Flanders, Lombard, and Smollett. For the Crows, their players injured are Gallagher, Murray, Strawn, and Rochelle. The players in the mix for the Suns are Moyle and Ferroni. For the Crows, their players in the mix are Hedler, Nankervis, and Murphy. Where the game will be won at, it's the ruck midfield setup on both sides. For Gold Coast Suns, you got Witz against O'Brien. Witz, good ruckman, hits the ball. O'Brien is a solid tap ruckman. I expect Witz to dominate over Riley O'Brien. Then you got Humphreys against Saligo. Saligo, good inside mid. Humphreys can go inside, outside, but Saligo is more consistent, so I just give the chocolates to Saligo, even though Humphrey has X factor. Then you got Matt Crouch against Noah Anderson. Anderson inside, outside, elite kicker. Matt Crouch accumulated the ball, more of a handball first type midfield. I expect Anderson to dominate over Crouch. In centre, you got Rao against Dawson. Rao can go inside, outside. Dawson can go inside, but is a great outside kicker. Because Rao explodes our stoppages, I give the chocolates to Rao over Dawson. And then on the wings, you got Weller against Cumming. Both players are pretty solid, provide a bit of drive from the wing. Say it's even between those two midfielders, or wingers I should say. Then on the other wing, you got Closely against Scholl. Scholl's a good elite kicker, but Closely is a pretty solid player. Say it's pretty even between those two players. And just looking at the ruck midfields between the two sides, Ritz will give Gold Coast Suns first news in the midfield, and I'm going to pick the Suns to beat the Crows, and the Crows will have their first loss of season 2025. The next game is between Richmond and the Brisbane Lions, played at the MCG. Last week, Richmond lost to St Kilda. Now they've lost 2 of the last 3 games, whereas Brisbane had a come from behind win against Geelong, and the Lions are 3-0. They have not lost a game. Their back-to-back premiership run is looking good for season 2025. The players injured for the Tigers are Banks, Gibcus, Hotland, Lufu, Prestia, Rousmith, and Tyler Young. For the Lions, they'll be missing Coleman, Dode, Lloyd, Lohman, McCarthy, Starsnovich. The players in the mix for the Tigers are Rioli, McAuliffe, and Ryan. For the Lions, their players in the mix are Smith and Robinson. Where the game will be won at, Richmond, one of the youngest sides playing with so many first and second year players playing. The Lions are so experienced, last year's premiers, and without going into much details, the lineup of the Lions, so many experienced premiership players against young Richmond sides or Richmond's team, I just can't go against the Lions. I expect Brisbane to beat Richmond. Therefore, I'm going to tip the Lions to beat Richmond Tigers. The next game is between North Melbourne and Sydney Swans. North Melbourne lost to Adelaide Crows last week, and they are at 1 win and 2 losses, whereas Sydney had to bye. The players injured for the Roos are Coleman, George, Goda, Lowe, Wardlaw, and also Archer is suspended. For the Swans, they'll be missing Adams, Andrew, Cunningham, Datoli, Fox, Gordon, McDonald, McInerney, Melican, Mills, and Snell. What a long injury list. Players in the mix for the Roos are Hardiman, Marley, and Dawson. For the Swans, their players in the mix are Mitchell and Shelbury. Where the game will be won at, it's the Swans defense or North Melbourne's forward line. If you compare the two sides, therefore you got Blakey against Curtis. Curtis is a good player when the ball hits the ground. I expect Blakey to be in the air, but Blakey is also very athletic. Say I give the chocks to Blakey over Curtis. Then you got Melican against Darling. Darling's experienced player who prides the issue. Melican, good experienced defender. Say it's even between those two players. Then you got Vicks against Serha. I give the chocks to Serha over Vicks. Then you got Matty Roberts against Sheasel, if assuming Sheasel's in the full line. Roberts can provide drive off halfback, but Sheasel is a smart decision maker, good kicker, very elite with his kicking. I give the chocolates to Sheasel over Roberts. Then got Larkey against Dan Rainpey. Larkey, one of the best players for North against the Crows last week. Therefore, I'll give Larkey the chocolates over Rampy. Then you got Patton against Hanson Jr. I'll give the chocolates to Patton over Hanson Jr., who's a young player. Looking at that, I just don't know where North will get the goals if you exclude Larkey. Darling may get a goal or two, and Zerha and Curtis, but will 10 goals will be enough? Therefore, I'm going to tip Sydney to beat North Melbourne and get their second win in a row for the Swans after they beat Fremantle Dockers 2 weeks ago. And the Swans will be back on track with a win and loss record of 2-2. The next game is between GWS Giants against West Coast Eagles. Last week, the Giants had a flying start against Hollywood Hawks, led by 4 goals at quarter time, and in the next 3 quarters, they were outscored by Hawthorn 10 goals to 5, and they lost to the Hawks by 2 goals. The Eagles lost to Freo by 30-odd points in their Western Derby. The players injured for the Giants are Angman, Fahy, Goffard, Hannaford, and Smith. The players injured for the Eagles are Chester, Hutchinson, Jamson, Sheed, Waterman, and Yo. The players in the mix for the Giants are Deckerson, Ali, and Rare. For the Eagles, their players in the mix are Hall, Flynn, and Bo Allen. Where the game will be won at, just looking at the two rosters, it's the age factor. For West Coast Eagles, there's so many players taking the last 2 to 3 years in the draft, so they have so many inexperienced players. Whereas the Giants is a pretty experienced side with so many players that got finals experience. West Coast are rebuilding. The Giants are in the premiership window stage. Therefore, just looking at the two roster, and without going into much detail, and with all the experienced players that the Giants have, you can't go against them against the young West Coast Eagles side. Therefore, I'm going to tip the Giants to beat West Coast Eagles. The next game is between Port Adelaide Power and St Kilda Saints, played at the Adelaide Oval. The Power had a terrible loss to Essendon on a Thursday night by a couple goals, and the Saints smashed Richmond Tigers by 8-odd points. The Power has a win-loss record of 1 win and 2 losses, whereas the Saints are sitting at 2-1. After the first loss of the season, St Kilda, they won their last 2 games and are playing the Ross Lyon brand of football that they show. Players in the mix for the Power are Finlayson, Lay, and Williams. For the Saints, their players in the mix are big one, Steele, Shawmaker, and Bourne. The players missing for the Power are Anastopoulos, Burton, Butters, Jones, Lukosius, Marshall, McEntee, and Zert Thatcher. The Saints will be missing Butler, Dow, Howard, King, Philippou, Stocker, Taru, and O'Connor. Both sides have many injuries, and with the patch-up roster of both sides on the field, the players listed on the field are pretty even between the two sides. However, St Kilda had a good win last week against Richmond, who are back to be finishing in the bottom 4, and the Power that had a terrible loss for their stance against Essendon. The game is playing Adelaide, and in Adelaide media, This week, I expect the Power to be negative press in South Australia, and especially with their arch rival Crows win their first 3 games with all the positive news. I just expected a reaction for the Power. And the games were Adelaide Oval. Port had a good win 2 weeks ago against Richmond, and last week St Kilda had a good win against Richmond. Both teams, the Power and the Saints, both beat Richmond by 8 odd points. And just because the game's playing in Adelaide, Port's under the pump all this week. I'm going to take a punt and tip the Power to beat St Kilda's Saints. But it's going to be a close one, I can sense it. Last game of the week, played on a Sunday afternoon, is between Fremantle and the Western Bulldogs, played at Optus Stadium in Perth of Western Australia. Last week, the Doggers beat West Coast by 3 odd points in their local derby, and the Bulldogs had to come from behind against Carlton. The Doggers sit at 1 win and 2 loss, whereas the Doggies, with all those injuries, sit at 2 wins and 1 loss. The players injured for the Doggers are Darcy, Jones, Nichols, Switkowski, Walters, and Young with a hamstring injury. The Doggies will be missing a number of key players: Bontempelli, Cleary, Garcia, Jag, Treloar, Johannesson, Jones, Scott, Waitman, and Baker. So many good players missing for the Bulldogs. The players in the mix for Fremantle are Wagner, Reddy, and O'Meara. For the Bulldogs, their players in the mix are Croft, Jones, and Poulter. Where the game will be won at, it's the midfield. If we compare the 2 teams' ruck midfield setup, in ruck you got Jackson against English. Both players are good tap ruckmans, and English has good strong hands, but Jackson acts as an extra midfield when the ball hits the ground. I'll tip Jackson over English. Then you got Sarong against Fraser. Fraser, good young player, but Sarong, excellent player, won the Ross Glendenning medal in the Western Derby last week. I'll give the chocolates to Sarong over young Fraser. Then you got Brayshaw against Richards. Brayshaw, a 2-way runner, can work up and down the field. Richard, great elite left foot kicking, good at hitting targets. However, I'll give the chocolates to Brayshaw over Richards. Then in centre, you got O'Driscoll against Liber, or Liberatore I should say. O'Driscoll, good young player, but Liberatore, hard inside mid, finds plenty of the ball in the contested cold phase. I give the chocolates to Liberatore over O'Driscoll. Then you got young Sharp against Davidson, who's starting medicine before playing for the Bulldogs. Davidson, experienced, mature player, drafted from the VFL last year. Sharp, former Gold Coast Suns player. Say it's even between those 2 players. Then on the other wing you got Johnson for Fremantle and Williams. Johnson, good young player, but Williams, former All-Australian, elite kicker. I'll give the chocolates to Bailey Williams over Johnson. Look at the ruck midfield setup. I just give it to Fremantle, and therefore I'm going to tip Freo to give the Bulldogs the hee-ho. My tips for round 4 of season 2025 are the Maggies to beat the Blues and Canada have their 4th loss of season 2025. The Cats to beat the D's, and the D's will also be on 0 wins and 4 losses. The Suns to beat the Crows, and the Crows will get their first loss of the season. The Lions to beat Richmond. The Swans to beat the Kangaroos. The Giants to easily beat the Eagles. The Power to beat Saints in a close one. And Freo to beat the Western Bulldogs. Thank you for watching my video, and it will be appreciated if you can subscribe and comment to my videos. Hopefully you enjoyed my video, and see you next time. Cheers or bye.